you for listening to the Drinks.com podcast, the business of online alcohol. I'm your host, Brandon Amoroso, and today I'm talking with Zack Musick, who's the director of education for the German wine collection. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's always nice to have like a solid platform for the alcohol industry.
Agreed. So before we jump into things, can you give everybody just a quick background on yourself?
Sure. Yeah. So I have been I've been a sommelier for 13 years. I got my start at the Montage Resort in Laguna Beach. I worked at the studio restaurant there, and I started at the bottom, and then slowly worked my way up, and then eventually became a sommelier when I was 21. After that, I kind of fell in love with the industry as a whole. I started doing a lot of bartending. I started getting into beer and cocktails and sake, and very soon after that, when I was about 24, I started running the beverage program for the Four Seasons on Lanai, so that tiny little island in Hawaii. And I did that for 2 years, which was great. That was like my dream job at the time. Everything that I ever wanted was to like run my own like beverage program for a resort like that, and being able to start from scratch and kind of build it was really incredible. And then after I left Four Seasons, I went and worked for the Merriman's Restaurant Group, which was also at that time, I thought it would be really cool to do multiple different concepts. So I did all the Merriman's restaurants in Hawaii. And that's where we met as well. And I loved that job. That was also, I think even now, I love my current position, but I think being a sommelier on the floor is probably one of the best jobs out there for someone that really loves wine as much as I do. There's just the wines that you get to try, being able to shape an experience for someone, with wine is really special. I did that for 6 years, and then I now am director of education for the German wine collection. While I was in the position at Merriman's, I was the biggest buyer in the country for this portfolio. And so when Jenna Fields kind of started her own company with the portfolio after Rudy Wiest retired, she was his national sales manager and sold me all of the wine. And then she started her own company and kind of just pulled me along with it. And it's been great. Being able to show these wines around, I think that they don't get really the recognition that they deserve. I've obviously always been in love with them. But being able to, I think there's a luxury with being able to show wines that are just delicious all the time, and just being able to open up people's minds. It was kind of a no-brainer decision for me.
So for those that are listening, can you explain what exactly the German wine collection is?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are a portfolio. We are an import company, and we import 22 different wineries from Germany. The main focus is really just having a more honest representation of what's being produced in Germany. And I think for a long time, the general public's idea of German wine was focused around sweet Riesling, and that was it. And that's just not the reality of what's being produced in the country. What's being produced are, a ton of dry wines. If you go to Germany, you are most of the time just drinking dry wine. It's not like you're everywhere you go, there's sweet Riesling. And then just the range of varieties that you see outside of Riesling. And so, Germany is the largest producer of Pinot Blanc in the world now. They just this year surpassed France. They are the second largest producer of Pinot Gris or Pinot Grigio. They are the third largest producer of Pinot Noir, and they do all three of those varieties very well. The big talk right now is Chardonnay, and we're lucky enough to be able to bring in some of the top Chardonnays that are being produced in the country. And I think that's that's like really what the whole company is centered around, is kind of just opening up people's eyes to the quality and the variety that's being produced. All of our producers are organic for the most part. A large part of them are biodynamic, with a focus on regenerative farming, which are some of my favorite wineries. I think worldwide, the best wines are always kind of made in the vineyard site. I mean, if you have to do a lot of work at the winery to make a great wine, I think it always kind of lacks something. There's a lack of energy that you can only attain in the vineyard site. And so I think starting with good fruit is makes the best wine.
Yeah, I've had some of those over-engineered wines before, and it is definitely not the same.
Yeah,
You can
absolutely
tell.
not. And they like fall apart. I always say that, the every time you do something in the cellar to change the wine, it's like you create this like string to hold it there. And the more you do it, like the more strings that are like holding it. And after a while, those wines like just fall apart because they're held together by strings. And you just
Mhm.
don't have the longevity that you do with making wines in a more natural manner.
What have been some of the challenges since you started with bringing in different types of German wine beyond just the sweet Riesling to the U.S. market?
I mean, I think across the board with just with things that people aren't aware of, that being German wine, and the varieties that we're showing. I think for getting someone who drinks, let's say, a ton of Burgundy to start drinking German Pinot Noir and convincing them that the quality is there and the quality to price ratio is there. Um, it's tough to do without having the wine in front of you. And I think even then, I mean, there's been some restaurants that have loved the wines and they just aren't confident that they'll move on the list, because they just the lack of awareness overall. And so it does take it takes a lot of sommeliers really that I get the pleasure of training and kind of showing and having those people to champion the wines on the floor is the most important thing. People in wine shops that are like, hey, you have to try this. Being able to create those people is a real joy for me, but also it is a bit of a speed bump getting people to put the wines on the list. People who have taken the chance. We have a small like sandwich shop in Temecula that has put on a Pinot Blanc, and it took us a little bit to kind of convince them that, hey, this Pinot Blanc makes so much sense for the quality of food that you're doing, but also just like the bread, because it has this kind of like yeasty, leesy quality to it. And they did, and now it's like the top wine at this restaurant. And it's, I mean, they don't have a whole lot of options, but in Temecula, you would imagine that like oaky, buttery Chardonnay would be the number one. And I think they've really kind of convinced a lot of people that come in that like, hey, like you should really drink this. And so I think if people just take a chance on the quality, and this is for all wines from all countries. I mean, I think a lot of like Portuguese wines are just incredible right now, but people are worried about, putting them on the list because they're like, oh, well, nobody's going to buy a wine from Portugal. And it's like, if you believe in your program and, you believe in your staff, I think those wines will move. And you create a really fun experience for your guests too.
How was your experience, on the floor at Merriman's and as a som at previous places translated over to having to, educate and get the buy-in from all of these folks that, I'm imagining a range of different places from your like small sandwich shop to, more, chain style restaurants and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the approach is slightly different, but I think the basis of it is all still there. I mean, it's a lot of the same things that I was doing on the floor. It's a lot are the things that I employ in my like day-to-day sales with restaurants and somms. I mean, I think I had the luxury at Merriman's to have clientele that was tended to be a little bit more educated about wines. And there was always a range, but it allowed me to kind of go into more detail or less detail. And now, obviously, everyone I'm selling to has a little bit more knowledge. But at the end of the day, it's showing the wines and kind of just giving those fun facts, and telling a story. I think everybody kind of wants like the story behind a lot of wines, and that is what helps them sell wine on the floor, and that's kind of what helped me sell wine. And so being able to give the tools that I've learned over the years to other sommeliers and other beverage directors and other wine shop owners or people that are doing chains, and like, hey, this is why this will move for you. It's enjoyable, really.
How has, if at all, sort of like the online channel played into your business and your approach to proliferating more German wine, throughout the U.S.?
It's helped tremendously, especially because our the company started in 2019, and so we hit the ground running, and very soon after we went into COVID and everything got locked down. And I think Jenna made the decision to really pivot and focus more on online sales. And so we have a great relationship with wine.com, and other like wine clubs that have been amazing. Wine Access, Wine Folly, Madeline Phuquet's wine club. I mean, a lot of these different like wine clubs that became popular through like their online presence was huge. And it also gave us a way to kind of look at how German wine is doing as a whole. And last year, wine.com told us that it is their fastest growing category on their website, which is amazing for us. And so we make sure that, especially just through online marketing, we want to make sure that people are able to buy those wines. Anytime, let's say like an influencer goes and posts something about the wine, we're able to reshare it and then also provide like a link to buy the wine. And there's, we have enough relationships with a lot of wine shops that do have kind of that online presence and make it really easy to purchase wine. And so that's been, it's been huge. I think, overall in the wine industry right now, I think a lot of people have found that purchasing wine online is kind of an easier way, and they're able to kind of search for the things that they want. And so even we just launched Rebholz, which is one of our big producers. It's this bottle that we have in the back. We just launched this producer and at all the Erewhon stores, and we didn't really know at the time, but they have a huge online presence. So I think, and they've told us that they've already sold wine through their website of Rebholz, and so that's just it's just another like outlet for a lot of people to be able to purchase wines from us, which is great. Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, I mean, your reach is significantly greater via one of those online wine clubs than, the sandwich shop example. Getting placed into that club, that's sort of free German wine marketing for you. Going
Absolutely.
out to hundreds, if not thousands, of wine consumers, and it's just getting put into the pack. So they get to learn about it in the best way that you could learn about it, which is trying it.
Yeah, no, it's huge. It's definitely been a big focus for us, and I think we with a category like ours, being able to focus more on like some of those like wine clubs and those online sales, it allows more people to kind of just see the wine and become a little bit more comfortable with it. And that's, in terms of like just pure marketing, it makes a huge impact.
Yeah. I prefer the online channel for the sake of just being able to filter and sort of get education and information as quickly as possible. Yeah. Whereas if you go into a store, it's sort of a, drawing straws in terms of who you're going to get there to be able to educate you. And I'm also just very pessimistic and think that I'm just going to be sold whatever needs to be sold, and not necessarily the bottle that I would enjoy or would, want to experience or try
Yeah.
out. So
I mean, you hear that. I mean, even like restaurants too. It'll be like, oh yeah, push this, and you're like, wow, they really are pushing the Josh Cabernet on me today. And you're like, why?
yeah,
What? And they're like, oh, that's right, because if they sell a certain amount, they get a trip to like, Napa or whatever it is. And so, yeah, there are. I mean, those incentives. I mean, I get it. I pushed those incentives. I've done it to other people, and I've had a lot of people, say it to me, like, sell enough of this producer in Piedmont, and we'll take you. And it's been like great. And sometimes when the wine is really good, you're like, oh yeah, no brainer. Let's show people. Um,
yeah,
but when you go certain spots and they're like, wow, there is a lot of Kendall Jackson here, it points it out.
yeah. I remember I was at Fleming's probably a couple months ago for like their Tomahawk Tuesday
Yep.
deal that they have, and you get like a certain amount of red wine, but the woman serving us, um, she's like, "Yeah, we got to get through these two," and like I could try and like push you and sell you on it, but like I'm just gonna keep pouring it for you until you want me to stop. We're like, all right, perfect. I mean,
No
your boss
way.
probably didn't want you to tell us that, but I
Yeah,
I, uh, I
definitely not.
appreciate the blatant transparency.
Yeah. I know that is it's kind of it's something that's nice and kind of refreshing in restaurants when you get that transparency. Like there's nothing better in a restaurant than when someone goes like you're asking about that and they're like, don't get that. Get this one, but do this. And you're like, yeah, I'm on your team. I will get whatever you say. Like, what should I drink? And then they're like, you should drink this. And you're like, perfect. Yeah, let's do that.
How does your process work when it comes to sort of identifying the target markets or the next places that you want to go after, that you like think that there's an opportunity with, because obviously there's only one of you, and I'm assuming you have limited time and resources, so how,
Yeah.
how do you go
Yeah.
about identifying what that is and then actually doing it?
There's a lot of variables. I mean, some of the places that we do really well in, you probably wouldn't expect. I mean, Hawaii is like our number three or fourth best state. And it's like, I mean, it's small and you wouldn't expect there to be that much German wine going, but and I will say I probably have a little bit to do with the amount of sales in Hawaii, but I think we go out there. We have two distributors in Hawaii, so I'm going out there twice as much. So I'll go and do like a work with one distributor, and then I'll do a work with the other one, and then they'll also have like their portfolio shows. And so it's like I'll find myself going out there like 4 times a year, and with that, you build these relationships with people, and I'll have sommeliers reach out to me personally and just be like, "Hey, I just moved to this new restaurant, and I want you to build out my whole German list." And so we'll see states kind of grow in that because of just putting a little bit more attention towards them. Some of it is the cities that are have a large German population. So like Huntsville, Alabama. Like I just had someone reach out and they're like, "Oh yeah, we just opened up another German restaurant," and it's like, God, I really need to go out there, and like my distributor, the not even like the guy who runs the distribution company, but one of the reps was like, "You have to come out. Like we're selling so much of the wine," and me going out there, I'll notice, and I'll go out there for 2 days and sell a pallet of wine. And most of it is like just people that are like, wow, these are so good. We have all of these Germans that love seeing German wine on the list, and they will automatically pick it up. And so
Uh,
that's obviously a big part of it. And some of those sales are pretty easy. I don't find that we're selling a lot of high end wine, but we're moving a lot of product, which is great. A lot of glass pours, a lot of places that are like, they won't bat an eye about putting two or three German wines on by the glass. Where it's
mhm.
like, even in San Diego, where I'm at, I'll go to a restaurant, I'll know the sommelier, and they'll be like, there's no way I can put on three German wines by the glass. There's just no way. Like I'll lose my job. And it's a shame to have that, but it's pushing the people to change. And then the markets where the knowledge is there, and where there's a lot of sommeliers. So I've been doing it a lot of focus in New York right now, Chicago, Boston, the big cities where you do have an educated kind of wine buying team of people.
Hmm.
Um, and we find ourselves selling like a lot of like Grosses Gewächs Riesling, and people that are willing to put on $300-400 Pinot Noir from Germany, and these wines that I think a lot of people would consider hard to sell, and they're very excited about it, and they move through the wines. And so I think just going there and showing what we have and opening up really nice wines is like kind of the first step. And we opened up some Grosses Gewächs Pinot Gris in Arizona a while back, and our distributor was very hesitant about picking it up because it's $60 wholesale to them. And they're like, I don't see us moving $60, Pinot Gris from Germany. And I
Yeah.
was like, let me just come out. I'm going to open up the wine and we'll just see what people think. And so I did a big master class about the different Grosses Gewächs wines, and the fact that we're doing Grosses Gewächs Pinot Blanc and Sylvaner and Pinot Gris. And we opened up this sommelier and ended up, there were 20 sommeliers there. There were some advanced somms, some master somms, and the master somm that was in the room was like, this is delicious. And everyone picked up a case, so much so that we oversold it, and we actually didn't have enough. And so they bought every case that we had left in the country, just from us like opening up. We opened up one bottle of Pinot Gris, and like every case was gone in Phoenix, Arizona. And so I think finding those markets is kind of tough, but I mean, a lot of the time it's just kind of opening up the wines. And so it's tough. It's getting back to your original question. It is really hard to decide kind of where we're going to put our focus. But I mean, at the end of the day, there's certain markets that I think we all go to, that if we'll spend 2 days and sell a couple pallets of wine, and it's enjoyable because most of the time it doesn't take a lot of pushing. It just takes a lot of education for their team and education for the buyers. And so that's obviously my favorite thing to do. It's my title,
Yeah.
and it's what I did on the floor as a sommelier. And so it's like it's kind of like my dream position right now.
How does it help? I'm assuming that you mentioned, I think, 22 brands in your portfolio,
Yeah.
versus if you were just, the director of education for one property, maybe that property would not be a fit for that particular. So you still get to do some of that curation that you were doing when you were like building the list at Merriman's, as an example. You can
Yeah,
be more of an
absolutely.
advisor and consultant in that sense.
Yeah, no, and especially because um, there still isn't that much knowledge about this category of wine, and so a lot of people will, trust in me, and and be like, "What? I I want to put on some German rosé. Like, what do you recommend?" And I'll be able to like kind of walk them through the flavor profiles of every rosé that we bring in, which everything's delicious. The German rosé is all low alcohol, very low sugar, but there are subtle differences. And so we have one from Württemberg, one from Pfalz, one from Baden that's exceptional, one from Rheinhessen that is doing extremely well, from Wagner Stempel. It's at every like monkey pod restaurant, and they're going through like 2 cases a week. Um, and so I think really being able to kind of show people the differences and the range, that's like the best part about being able to have 22 different producers. And some of our producers don't grow like any Riesling. Let's say we have more than one producer that grows 0 Riesling. And so when people are looking for, say, like Pinot Noir, we have 30 different options of Pinot Noir, and they are all very different. And we get to work with things like Sylvaner, where people don't really have the knowledge, but they have this asparagus dish on their menu, and they're trying to figure out what to pair with it. And I can open up something and bring it to them. And so there's lots of pros. Like I don't know if I could work for a company or just like one winery. And there's always, obviously over the years there's been offers, and I don't know. I don't know if I could do it. I could never work for one winery that just made like Napa Cab, or just like Mosel Riesling, and they like only did Riesling from the Mosel. Like it would be tough because there's certain people that are looking for things, and we have it all. Like Germany's producing all of it. I mean, we have German Merlot, we have German Cab, we have like red blends, we have great white blends, and so I think we really do have everything that someone could be looking for. And so the wines are really versatile too. So anytime someone has an opportunity for a pairing, I almost always have something that works. And so yeah, it's enjoyable. It's definitely enjoyable being able to have so many wines to work with. It's very similar to working with like a big wine list.
Do any of the brands have their own presence in the US?
Um, I mean, more or less, but you mean like outside? Do they have a team that's like working out here for the winery? No,
Yeah.
it's just us.
Okay.
We have exclusive rights to all of the wineries except for JJ Prum. They have two importers. Um, and so they, you see a lot more JJ Prum, and I think it's good. I mean, it kind of works for us as well, because it's more people going around talking about the wine, and so there are pros to that. But as far as like them having like a principal that's here, no, yeah, it's us and our team. But we've been able to create so many people that champion these wines, so it's like I'll go places and you know won't say who I am, and I'll have someone like trying to sell me on Pfeffigen Scheurebe. And they're like, that you've never had it. It's so good. And it's like, cool. We actually import this wine. And so, yeah, where there's not like someone direct from the winery, we've been able to create a lot of like ambassadors, just on the floor, which is so cool. So cool for me because I've always been really excited about the wines, but to kind of create that in someone else or even not create it and just kind of see it happen very organically from someone tasting it and being really stoked on it, is really, really cool. And it's always like the super random things sometimes. Like someone will be like, oh, this is my favorite wine. And it'll be you know, like some rosé from Baden. Like I had someone the other day tell me it's liquid gold. It's my favorite wine. And it's like, it is. It's really good. It's surprising. It's one of the more affordable wines in our portfolio, and one of the more affordable wines just in the grand scheme of things. And for people to be like, this is the best. This is the best wine is cool.
Yeah. That's that's pretty amusing. And you need to start giving out free Germany trips, and I bet you'll get even more ambassadors.
Yeah, we this year was the first year we took a handful of sommeliers from around the country. Um, and it was great. I mean, we kind of hand selected the team, um, and made sure that it was people that really appreciated the wine. So it was a couple of people that ran distribution companies. Like we brought Tony Morello, who runs our distribution company in Boston. We brought Eric Segelbaum, who's a wine writer. He got Sommelier of the Year in like 2019, I think. He's great, though. He's become like a close friend and definitely an ambassador of the wines. And Cha McCoy, she's a sommelier from New York. She's incredible. She runs like this wine shop, but she also does all this writing. And we were able to kind of create this like team of people, even like Jason Vendrell from Hawaii, which I was so stoked for him to come because he kind of took over my position. But he's buying a ton of German wine still. So I think everyone really appreciated it. And so, yeah, for all the buyers listening, reach out and buy a bunch of German wine and we will take you to Germany. Yeah.
I got one last serious question and then a couple fun ones. But how important is it? How important is it to get on a restaurant's per glass list in order to push volume?
In terms of volume, it's big. Yeah, I mean, sometimes depending on the restaurant, it can be it can make the difference. I mean, bottle placements are always great, but we will have bottle placements on lists where they have, let's say, 1,500 wines, and I mean, naturally the wines won't move that fast. And those restaurants that have those big lists also tend to be um, not the biggest restaurants. They're like ultra fine dining restaurants. And they maybe do 2 turns a night if they're lucky. Some are doing like 1.5 turns, and so they're doing, let's say, 100 covers, 100 people. That's like 100 bottles a night, maybe more. Um, but it's they're not moving through like that much wine. But being able to have something on by the glass, or even better, in some cases, being on like tasting menu pairings. We have a few restaurants that we're the pairing for more than one course. This restaurant Matsu in Oceanside has us on for three or four of their 10 courses, and they don't do, they're doing maybe 40 covers a night, but like for everyone that does the wine pairing, which are most people, all of those people are getting more or less a half glass of wine. And so we see a lot of movement with that. And I think as a whole, that gets more people to just they're not even taking a chance on the wine. They're getting it. And then, a lot of times they're like, wow, this was delicious. But yeah, as a whole, getting by the glass placements are a big deal, especially if you do it like with any sort of restaurant group. Like if we can get on and set up the special pricing for by the glass placements, and for a restaurant group, that can mean like pallets of wine, and a lot of those big buyers will buy in terms of like pallets. Like, yeah, we'll commit to 2 or 3 pallets of wine, and that's a lot. That's moving a lot of wine.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Well, 2 fun ones. First, what is your favorite wine memory?
Oh man, that's tough. I don't know. I mean, I think there's a lot of times where I've had great wines. Um, Most recently, and I think this still might be the best. I got to drink Bollinger '08 RD with Matthew Kaufman, who was the winemaker at the time. He actually is the winemaker for one of our wineries now, Kartoiserhof. But previously, he was the chef de cave. He was the winemaker at Bollinger for 12 vintages, um, and he's been making wine forever. He has other projects. He makes wine in Alsace. He has another sect project in Germany, and I mean, the guy's an incredible winemaker. I mean, it's Bollinger, so it's really good stuff. And I got to drink a bottle of '08 RD, which has always been like one of my favorite bottles of champagne, with him. And he told me while we were drinking it that it was the best wine that he's ever made. And that was kind of like an aha moment where I was like, oh my God, this is the best thing you've ever made. And so that's, anytime you get to like drink wine with a winemaker and they're like, yeah, this is the best bottle of wine I've ever made, you're like, you guys made so much wine. And so that was definitely one of the coolest moments. Yeah. Also, I
That's
think we
awesome.
drank like some 67 Haut-Brion together with Zach, and
Yeah.
we did like the La Mission Haut-Brion next to like Chateau Haut-Brion 67. There's like same year, like things like that. Like obviously moments like that will always come to mind. Um, yeah, I mean, those are like some of my best wines. But yeah, there's something special about drinking wine like with the winemakers, especially winemakers that I've like looked up to for a long time. And yeah, it's always really good times.
I love doing the side by sides of, same vintage, but maybe you're going with different producers or, different, uh, you know,
Yeah.
bottles from the same producer, or doing like a vertical of, I think I had like an 82, a 92, and a 2008, I think, of like Chateau. I always mess up the name, but Code de Tournelle or something.
Yeah.
Um, and
Costs.
like, yeah, costs. Going through and doing that, or any like those are the coolest, I think. So either doing same vintage year across a variety of different wines, or going one producer and then seeing how, '05, 2015, 2025 soon, like how that evolves. That those are my favorite.
Yeah. We I've been lucky enough. Now I'm going for the second time this year, but to go to the GG premiere. And so it's all the grossest Quebec wines, you have to, harvest straight laser level, ferment it completely trocken. It has to be really low yields, less than 50 hectoliters per hectare. It has to come from a Grand Cru site. It has to be sustainable. It has to be hand harvested. Even after you do all of that, it goes to this tasting panel, and the tasting panel will blind taste the wines and then approve them if they're at a certain quality. And that's why I think like the grossest Quebec category is kind of something onto its own, and it's not like an easy thing to get. And after they approve all of the wines, they do this premiere, and they invite 120 sommeliers and wine people from around the world. And I got invited last year, and I get to go again this year. And it is 400. Last year was 480 Grand Cru wines, and it's more or less the same vintage. Some producers are holding back, but say like when you get to like the Pinot Blancs, you're tasting like 30 different Grand Cru Pinot Blancs from like 2022, like just one right after the next. So you really get an idea of the vintage. But when you're doing that, you see these like producer variations in the way that they put their spin on a grape like Pinot Blanc, which isn't the most expressive of varieties. And you get to see it kind of just like how many cool things that you can do with this grape. And we got to do it with Sylvaner, and Sylvaner was like, blew my mind. I have like such a new appreciation. I've always loved the grape, but being able to see like what all these different producers are doing with this one grape, one right after the next. And we go through them pretty quickly because we have 3 days to do 480 wines. And so it's like, you're going pretty fast, but you get to just try so many expressions of Grand Cru Sylvaner that's being produced in Germany. And last year was like, I think there were 21, 18 maybe. Yeah.
It's a hell of
There's nothing
hell of
like
3 days.
that. What'd you say?
That's a hell of a 3 days.
Yeah. Your mouth hurts afterwards. Yeah. Lots of Tums,
Tough life. If last fun question. If you could share a bottle with anyone, who would it be, and what would you drink?
Oh God, that's a toughie. That's harder than the last question. I would say I would drink. Oh man, I don't know. I mean, there's so many. Does this transcend time? I can drink with anybody, like in history or like now?
Yeah. And
Anybody.
anybody.
I would drink with, my grandpa really liked a lot of wine, and he had a pretty awesome collection, and he passed away before I was 21 and before I formed like a real love for the wine. I guess we kind of started forming love for wine before I was 21. But I mean, I think being able to have a bottle with him would be really cool. And I would drink, just because it's him. I think I would drink like 89 De Cru, like right now. I love De Cru Beaucaillou. It's like one of my favorite houses, and I will drink De Cru over like First Growths. And I love that wine, and I can almost bet that he has probably not had that wine, especially with like the proper amount of age. I'm born in 90, but I really like the 89 as well. From that producer, I've had that wine twice, and both times it was like lights out. Like one of the better bottles of Bordeaux that I've ever had, and he loved Bordeaux. So I would probably go that route. I'm sure
Oh,
you thought I was going to say something German, which I'm sure everyone thought I was going to say something German. But yeah, I think in that, I think I love, there's so many wines that I love, and I think there's a right wine for every occasion, and that's probably the route I would go. Yeah,
there's
especially
not
because
enough time.
yeah.
There's not enough time in the day to try and drink all the stuff, all the good ones.
Yeah, and you know what? If you gave me more time, I would probably come up with three other wines with three other people, and they would probably all be different. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, guaranteed there's a few people that I would drink. Obviously, my significant other, her and I would definitely drink like the first vintage of Sect House Romland, who's like one of my favorite sect producers, and she loves it, and I think that would be really cool. Um, yeah, yeah. There's a handful of things.
Yeah. I don't get how people can just drink one varietal, or they're like so only set on a certain region or even a certain producer. Like I know people who just live and die by like Josh, for example.
Yeah,
Um, you open their wine fridge and it's like that's like a full blown advertisement for Josh Cellars. I'm
I
like,
know.
do you realize how many producers there are in California, let alone the world?
Yeah, yeah. I think I mean, it's one of my favorite things that I miss about being on the floor is we would have these people come in that are like, oh, like yeah, we only drink this, and like we only drink Chardonnay from Sonoma. And there was one occasion in particular, this couple came in like, this is what we drink. And I was like, let's just try something different, anything. But I think I have a couple things in mind. And they're like, okay. And I brought them out some Chenin Blanc from Champollion, from Vouvray. And it was, it's not an expensive bottle. It was less than the bottle of Chardonnay that they wanted. Um, and they told me like how much they're like, this is amazing. We love this. And a year goes by, they come back to the restaurant, and at that point, they're like, they knew everything about Chenin Blanc. They had all the producers that they loved. They were telling me, they're like, oh yeah, we've had this one and this one, like Huet, Guy Berthaud. They had like some of the best Chenin producers in the world. And they're like, oh yeah, we've had this one. And then they're like, yeah, it's all because you told us to try something other than like Sonoma Chardonnay. And it's like, there's nothing better as a sommelier than getting someone to do that and like get out of just drinking like God, the people that just drink Pinot Grigio. It blows my mind. Like even if you just stay like the variety, like there's so many cool like styles that you can make in other countries, like what Alsace is doing with Pinot Gris and what Germany is doing with Pinot Gris or Oregon. And they're like, nope, just Italian Pinot Grigio, and it has to be Santa Margherita. And you're like, what?
My grandma lived and died by the little bottles of Kendall Jackson that you could get from the grocery store.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny. We have people that do it with our wines. Like we have a producer, Fritz Mueller, that makes like it's like tank bubbles, and it's great. It really is really good. But we'll have like soccer moms that buy it by the case. I'm like, wow, by the case. Like, yeah, 12 bottles. Take it home. And now they're like, that's all I drink. Like, that's something. A lot. That's all you drink. Like we have so many other cool wines, and like I'll show them stuff too, and they'll be like, nope, we want this all the time. I'm like, great, all right, yeah, it
Hey, that's an
works.
easy customer. That's an easy customer though. So
Yeah, we have a customer for life. So yeah, man, it is. Yeah, I definitely I feel very fortunate with kind of the history that I have had with wine. My wine path has been fruitful.
yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much for joining us. But before we hop here, can you let everybody who's listening know where they can find you and the German wine collection online?
Yeah, absolutely. Our website is thegwc.com. You can always reach out through the website, or to my personal email, which is zack@thegwc.com, ZACK at thegwc.com. I will always get back to you any sort of emails. If you are interested in buying any of the wines, wine.com is a great resource, but you can also kind of look through a lot of our distributors on our website, and then we have it detailed out. All of our producers, all the individual bottlings that they produce that we bring into the country. We have all of our tech sheets are online, which for me was kind of a big deal. It's something that again, buying wine, being able to find like tech sheets online was huge, because it really does give you kind of an insight into what the wine's going to be like. And so, I mean, a lot of different ways you can find the wine. But if you are a buyer, you can find out who distributes our wine in whichever state that you're in, via our website.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, again, thanks for coming on. For everybody listening, as always, this is Brandon Amoroso, and you can find us at drinks.com, and we will see you next time.